Okay, welcome and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Jane Irrigation Training Series. I want to say Happy New Year to everybody. This is our first webinar of 2023, and I hope everybody had a good holiday and is ready to get back at it. So today we are going to talk about a very timely subject, and that is winter landscape and irrigation maintenance tips. And, one thing's for sure is in the wintertime, even in places like Southern California, where we can garden and landscape all year round, we still get a little bit of a break, right? In January and in December and even into February, you're not necessarily mowing every week. You've got extra time, extra labor hours to devote to other things. And certainly, I think the time you invest into your irrigation system in the winter really pays off for you in the summertime. So today, I thought it'd be great to bring DJ Caldwell on. If you've seen DJ, he does a great job with these trainings, and DJ is going to walk us through some of the irrigation maintenance tips and other maintenance tips you can use in your landscape. Now, DJ knows a lot about this because one, he's been involved in the landscape industry for many, many years. He's been a landscape contractor. He's worked for a distributor and now about 8 years for ET Water and Jane Irrigation. So we've got a lot of knowledge and experience from somebody who's been doing this every day for a long time. DJ, welcome and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Richard.
So DJ, the first thing I think about when I think about winter landscape, and again, even in Southern California where it's 50 today, and I think it's cold outside, isn't it too cold to be working out, especially where you live in Colorado and digging in the ground?
Well, there are definitely times where it's not feasible to get out and work in some of the weather. Like right now we've got, a couple inches of snow sitting on the ground, so it's definitely a lot more difficult to actually work on it. But the coldness really doesn't necessarily seem to affect it, because once you get out and you're working, your body's moving, you're getting warm. Also, our frost level isn't hitting, really that deep on a normal basis, because we do warm up. We're not Wisconsin or Iowa where once it snows, it sticks around for the entire year. But, if the frost level is a couple inches, you can usually still get your shovel through that and do a lot of the work that way. It may take just a little bit longer, but it is a good way, really to keep guys busy as a contractor.
Yeah, so one thing I learned when I lived up in Seattle for a while was we blew out the irrigation systems there. I want to get all that water out of them. So if I do a repair today or to my irrigation system, how do I test it?
So a lot of times you're not necessarily able to do a lot of the testing right now. You definitely can. We've done it before where we've put air, similar to blowing out your system, just put the compressed air back into the system and, really test that your joints are going to hold or you don't have any leaks anywhere. But a lot of it's going to be when you turn your irrigation back on in the spring, making a checklist of everything that you've done over the winter to really make sure that those repairs are holding.
Yeah, great point. And not too difficult to do, right?
No, if it's not going to hold, you'll know pretty quickly once you turn the water on.
Right. As will all your neighbors and homeowner association people.
Exactly.
So anyway, DJ, let's get into this a little bit.
Perfect. So yeah, really, one of the first questions when I, kind of thought of this topic was, really, why would you want to worry about your landscape during the winter months? And the first thing that came to mind, if you're a property owner or, even a property manager, it's a great way to get ahead of the landscape season during the slow months. And as a homeowner, you can always make your neighbors jealous by having the first yard on the street to green up. As a contractor, I mentioned this earlier, but it really helps keep your employees busy during the off season. So there's different things that can be done. Maybe not everyone's going to get their full 40 hours a week, but if you can get them 30, 32 hours, that's definitely better than what they would get on unemployment or job attached unemployment. Really just trying to keep guys busy. And, for a lot of guys, they want to make sure that they keep their employees during the winter months. So that way they don't lose them to a different company or even a different industry.
Yeah, I think that's so important right there, because what we're seeing is a labor shortage. So there's plenty of jobs to go around, and I'm seeing people jump jobs in the irrigation technology contractor business for 50 cents an hour, $1, $2 extra an hour. So certainly keeping them busy would be important. And the other thing I find really interesting, DJ, is that there is a lot of attention paid to irrigation in the Rockies, where you might think, oh, they have so much water, they don't, 6 months of the year, it's irrigation, not 12. But boy, back at Valley Crest, we used to do as much business in the Denver area as we did in Los Angeles in irrigation. I mean, it's you guys pay attention to it there.
We definitely do. Yeah, we are right at the, the headwaters basically of where all the water comes from. But it is something that we've always been very conscious of. And even in the news, it's always talking about droughts and possible droughts, all of that. But I want to say, for the ET water side of the business, Colorado alone is almost as big as what we do in California. So it's always been a very big piece of the puzzle for our contractors to really really take it, basically spearhead it is probably the best way to put it, to get the information out there and keep things moving forward.
I think you're right. And another big part of this is just awareness. And Denver Water has done such a great job with raising the awareness of water conservation. I think for many years, they've been an example for the rest of the country, how to make it interesting and fun with some of their ads and things they have done over the years to really create that awareness. So big shout out to Denver Water today.
Definitely. Yeah. I think they even, help other municipalities, try figure out how to get the word out in their areas. So, they've really been, kind of the lead dog in, their advertising for years.
Yeah, definitely. So you have on here, make your neighbors jealous. How does what I'm doing in the winter make my neighbors jealous?
Well, if you're able to get out and, get your, chemicals applied, or, get your shrubs pruned, really there's a bunch of different things that you can do that we'll go over. But, like, I know my neighbors always give me a hard time because, I do know how to do this. So I am out there, putting chemicals and fertilizer and stuff down. And, really on my street, my yard's the first one to green up every year. Now that means that I have to start mowing sooner than anybody else, but it does look good.
Yeah. And I think that's an important point here, is that what you're doing in the winter, it may not pay back that day, but in the coming months, it pays back and becomes very obvious.
Definitely.
Yeah, the examples of a good landscape, a good maintained, designed, planted landscape is very visual. You don't have to look hard to find a good one. They jump out at you.
They definitely do. I mean, you can drive down any street and you can tell which ones were, really maintained well, and which ones need a little help.
Yeah. So I just want to remind everybody, we've got the Q&A and chat open today. So if you have questions or comments you want to add, put them in there and I'll get them to DJ when appropriate. And just like last year, we're giving some free t-shirts and some other Jane swag for people who ask some great questions.
Perfect. Well, I wanted to start, with snow removal as, a maintenance thing. It doesn't really seem like it'd be something that would be maintenance related. And I know it's definitely different in other parts of the country, because not everywhere does actually have this and, gets to, do the work and revenue from snow removal. But a couple things, related to that is, really when you are doing snow removal, there definitely can be damage to your landscape done with it. So, I mean, we all hear about, snow mold and, other diseases that can come if snow sits on it too long. But beyond that, we have physical damage where your plow or snow blower or shovels can even hit your turf or rock beds and cause damage. But on top of that, we can also see chemical damage from the use of ice melt and other melting chemicals that can really harm a landscape and really damage the aesthetic look of it once it starts to come out of dormancy.
Yeah, so a couple of questions here, DJ. One, I don't notice you call it snow removal, and everybody does call it snow removal. But do we actually remove snow from a property?
We remove it off of the hardscape. So your sidewalks, driveways, even parking lots, it gets moved off of that. And generally, unfortunately, it does go onto the landscape.
Yeah. So this, right? This is when you start to think about that, right? Because we're not filling a dump truck full of snow and shipping it someplace else, trucking it someplace else. We are just moving it to another portion of the property. And right, this is where a lot of damage can happen. And like you said, the ice melt in particular, what is ice melt? What are some of the chemicals that go into that?
So ice melt, I don't know the exact makeup of it, but I want to say a lot of it is the sodium chloride. So basically it's a salt. And what happens is either if it's applied on directly onto the landscape by someone that doesn't know it's there, or it, can even get in through runoff once the snow starts melting. It actually causes damage to your root zones of your plants.
Yeah, so are there some things I can do to help cut down on the amount of ice melt damage I might be getting in my landscape?
So a lot of people, we really only, as a landscape contractor that does snow removal, most guys they only do ice melt on high traffic areas, entrances to buildings or stairs, anywhere where there's a really big slip and fall, risk. It's not something that's done across, every square inch of the property that you're moving the snow from. But obviously limiting the amount you put down, so you don't need to use a 5-gallon bucket on a driveway. Really just use what you need, and really once the storm's over, really clean up what's left if there's anything that's left there. Unfortunately, with using ice melt, that the damage is going to happen at some point. It's just trying to be cognizant of where it's going. A lot of people out here, they'll line their driveways with rock beds, so when you are shoveling, you're not putting it right onto your turf or flower beds, anything along those lines. So there are different design tactics you can use to try to prevent it as well.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea too for irrigation, right? That way you're not having your spray head right next to your sidewalk either for runoff. So I like it.
So then the next thing that a lot of contractors do, and even homeowners do out here, is what we call winter watering. So this is actually putting water back into the root systems of your plants. Really this is done fairly often throughout the season, especially here in Colorado, because we don't get a ton of snow, and as I mentioned, it melts off fairly quickly after we get a storm. But you do want to keep up on it, because your plants can definitely start to dry out, and they can suffer if they aren't actually given any water during the winter months.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about that. And because I've been looking at temperatures around the West, of course, I'm interested in this from an irrigation perspective, but I see in Salt Lake, for instance, a lot of times you'll see a high of 30, a low of 20, not much differentiation. But in Colorado or other parts of Northern California, like the other day, I saw you guys were getting 50s for a high and high 20s for a low. Definitely some ET happening then.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, if, I can look at my Jane Unity now, and I can look at my soil moisture, or my moisture balance on my zones. And, really as the winter goes on, you just see it start, continue to deplete even further and further, really until it almost looks like it's completely empty.
Yeah. So DJ, I don't have my irrigation on because it's cold. How in the world do I water my landscape? Do I just have to hand water it, or what do I do there?
You definitely can. Couple tips that I've learned over the years. One way is to surface water. So you could set your hose to, basically a slow stream, and let it sit on your trees and move it from time to time. One of the ways I generally do it, or have done it in the past, I should say, is I take a 5-gallon bucket and I drill 4 or 5 really small holes in the bottom of it. So like a 1/16 of an inch, or even smaller if you can. And then once you fill up that bucket, it just slowly percolates out of the bucket and into your soil. So you're actually getting, a good watering down into it, and you're not having it run off to, other parts of your landscape.
Yeah, that's a great tip, right? Runoff, we know all about that right now with all the rains. So what size hole do you put in this 5-gallon bucket?
I want to say last time I did it, I did like 1/16 of an inch or 32nd of an inch, really small. I mean, basically you just want it dripping out, over a slower period of time. I want to say last time I did this, it was, I think it was 8 minutes it took for that 5-gallon bucket to drain out. So it's definitely a lot slower than using your hose.
Yeah, and so that's probably more than one hole though, right?
Yeah, so in mine, I did 5, 1 in the center, and then, kind of 4 around it, the edges.
Okay, that's great.
And then you,
yeah, are there some tools and it's a great tip, and I like it because I have extra buckets around, but if I want to go buy something, can I?
yeah, so a lot of companies make a deep root injector that connects directly up to your hose. And it really is just a probe that has a couple holes in the tip of it. So you can actually stick that down into the ground, 3 to 6 inches below the surface level. And, once you turn your hose on, you're actually putting water down in below the surface level there. If you are using one of those injectors, you really want to do it throughout the root zone. Really try to spread out the water so you're not watering just one half of your tree and not the other side.
Yeah, very cool tip. One of our arborists that was talking about watering trees in drought was also mentioning that tool and how good it is for supplemental watering.
Yeah, and a lot of tree companies, they'll use them. That's how they'll put fertilizer down into the root zones, or different kinds of chemicals. Really get it down to where the plant can really take it up and use it.
Yeah. Okay, great. Hey, I did want to mention one of our viewers, Russ. Thank you for mentioning that ice melt is typically calcium chloride, potassium chloride, and magnesium chloride, which is a dye, and sometimes sand too. So a lot of stuff in that ice melt.
Yeah, it definitely is. Good to know, and I'll have to look into that a little bit more. Learn something new. So here you go, Richard. I have a question for you, and any of the viewers can definitely get involved with this. But do you know how many inches of snow it typically takes to get 1 inch of actual water?
Yeah, I actually do know this, I think, but right, it's not foreign to me. But so I want to give people a chance, to maybe comment or put into the Q&A what this answer is, and we'll send them a nice Jane Irrigation training T-shirt if they get it right. But before we get to the actual number, DJ, I'm wondering why this matters, right? Why it's important to know this.
The reason it really matters is because it's not equivalent to if you get rainfall or you run your irrigation system for 15 minutes about how much water is coming out. It's not that equivalent. The other part of it is when snow is melting, we're actually getting a lot more evaporation waste or loss than we are with a typical rainstorm, because the water's actually evaporating just as fast, if not faster, than it's actually melting and going down into the root zone.
Yeah, so this is what everybody is concerned about, right? As temperatures climb or average recorded temperatures are higher, we're going to get more runoff of the water, and less will actually be absorbed or used. Is that right?
Exactly. So if you're, if it's melting slower, we're going to get a little bit of evaporation, but the temperatures aren't going to be as high, so it's not going to evaporate as quickly. When we, go from freezing to, 60s or 70s, and we're seeing a lot of that snow melt really fast. Again, it's not allowing it to soak into the root zone. You're getting more evaporation, so it's really, not as beneficial as we would like to see it.
Yeah. So we're getting some good answers to your question here, right? And nobody has said the 1-to-1, right? 1 inch of snow equals 1 inch of rain. So we haven't had that. And we actually have one viewer saying 12 inches of snow to get 1 inch of water, and another 10 inches of snow to get 1 inch of water. I think they're both right.
They are, yes. So it actually is anywhere between 10 to 12 inches of snow. And it's really going to depend on, the type of storm you get. Sometimes it's going to be a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less. Just depends on the water content in the actual snow itself. But, typically it is 10 to 12 inches of snow actually equals 1 inch of water.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's great. Well, listen, Mark and Russ will be in touch with you guys to get you a t-shirt. And somebody else was anonymously saying 10 to 1. If you want to shoot us an email or get us your name, we'll be happy to get you something as well.
Perfect.
So what else should we be paying attention to in our gardens in the winter besides irrigation?
Definitely. So one of the other things that I know a lot of contractors out here do, and I do it at my house as well, is, the application of chemicals. So, putting down your slow release fertilizers in the springtime, and even pre-emergence, in your rock beds and even on your turf to, really help, cut back on the labor and really the aesthetics of the weeds that can grow in all those areas. So some of the fertilizers, you can get them in, a bunch of different varieties. But there are some on the market now where it's basically a one-time a year application. So you put it on at a little bit heavier of a rate. You'd have to, go back to the bag specifically and see, how many pounds per acre you're actually having to use. But, it really does, once you get it down earlier in the year, you don't have to send guys back out to do it again. Really, again, cuts down on labor, especially when we're having some of those labor shortages, as you were mentioning.
Yeah, so I can put it down really in January or February, and it'll be okay. What if it's there's snow on the ground?
So generally we try to limit when there's actually snow on the ground. The nice thing is during the winter months, if it is a little bit drier, the chemical reaction doesn't actually start to take place until it's watered in. So you really want to, a lot of guys try to time it, get it down right before a snowstorm so it starts to kick in. But you can really put it down, and if it's not going to be wet for a couple of weeks, the chemical won't actually be activated.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks. So what about the pre-emergence herbicides, things like this? Are they going to be effective? How soon before the season can we actually get them down?
So, they make pre-emergence in, a couple different ways. I mean, one of them is a granular that, again, it doesn't really start to break down until it gets wet. So, that one is good as well. I mean, I know people start putting that down here in Colorado in February on all the rock beds, really trying to, wait to make sure that it gets activated a little bit closer to the watering season. But they also make it in a chemical version. So if you are doing liquid fertilizer, or liquid chemical, like a glyphosate or something like that, you can mix it in with those chemicals, and so you're basically applying two things at once.
Yeah, pretty respectable for your time and your labor.
Definitely. So then another thing that can really be done, and a lot of times they actually recommend that, you do some of your heavier pruning during the winter months. And that's because once, the plant goes into dormancy, there's hardly any leaves on the shrub. So you can actually see the structure of the plant. So, if you're taking over a new property and it's been, sheared with hedge pruners for years, and it really just looks like a ball all the time, you could go in and you can, cut, basically restructure it, get the desired shape, through different pruning tactics. Removing dead branches really encourages new growth on what is alive. And then the picture on the left here, this is actually what we call a hard prune, where you basically cut it all the way back or as far back as you can to really encourage the new growth. And a lot of times that'll actually really increase the number of flowers on certain bushes that you get. Some of the ones we do that with here, are dogwoods, spireas, lilacs. The lilacs are a little bit different because you will have to be careful of the timing on that. because they do start to bud out in the fall. So if you cut off all the buds, you're not going to have any flowers that next year, but it would, rejuvenate the growth and really help it in the years going forward.
Yeah, I always say this is the time you test your faith and your horticultural knowledge. When
Definitely.
you start pruning back, with that expectation of it's going to look better after, it's a leap of faith. But certainly, Southern California, we're getting ready to get into rose pruning season, and boy, we all know the positive results there.
Definitely. I remember when I was first starting out, and my first boss told me just to go cut a shrub all the way to the ground, and I assumed I was going to kill it, but it came back and it looked good.
Thought there was some money-making scheme from the owner. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Got them back. We'll replant them. Nope. They grow back just fine.
So then one of the other things that I've done a lot through my career is using the winter months, slower time of the year to really do irrigation efficiency upgrades. Some of the things that I've done in the past are, upgrading the type of head that is actually in the system. So instead of a spray head, moving more towards like an MP rotator, or even, a precision nozzle that has a lower precipitation rate that, that's more efficient to the system. Those are pretty easily, you can change those out fairly easily during the winter months. Changing from drip or from spray to drip irrigation, or even updating your drip irrigation so you actually are watering to what the root size actually is. That's really pretty much on top of the ground, so you can see it, you can get to it fairly easily. And then, one thing that I don't think a lot of people think about is, you can install smart controllers during the off season. You can even do it with snow on the ground, because usually it's up on the wall or in a pedestal. So you're not really dealing with having to get any wires wet from snow or anything else. And, I know a lot of contractors, or what I used to do is, I'd actually offer it a discount to my customers to let me do it during the winter months. Cause that would keep one or two guys busy for a couple of weeks if we sold enough of them.
Yeah, it sure would. And that's a great point, right? This is above the ground work, really, wiring in and programming on your computer. Not, that's actually indoor stuff if you want it. So this is very doable in the winter.
Definitely. I mean, I want to say in one winter, this may have been 12 years ago now, but I want to say we sold something like 110 or 120 controllers that we were able to install over the winter. So I was able to keep 3 guys busy when it wasn't snowing for basically 2 months.
Yeah. And you said this is when you were a landscape contractor?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's pretty great, especially when I think, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 for the install, plus some margin on the controllers themselves. That's not a bad revenue source right there. And ultimately, you're saving a ton of water as you do it.
Yep. And it's nice. I mean, if you're able to save your customers a little bit of money as well, it really, really makes you look good, and, you're really trying to do the right thing by them.
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to ask you, I saw Jane Unity came out with a new feature last month. It's the cost of water feature. What in the world is that?
So it's actually a really cool feature. So what you're able to do, whether you have a flow sensor or not, you can enter in the information. But what it does is it actually tracks your usage. So you enter in the, basically what you pay for water. So if it's tiered rate, how many gallons is tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And we're calculating that so we can actually spit out a dollar amount that you are spending on your water in a given month. You can break it down by day. You can look at it as a property as a whole, or you can even drill down and you can see which zones are costing you more than others. And the really cool and very intuitive part about it is, if you don't have a flow sensor, so you're not actually tracking exactly how much water is there, you can give us your flow rates per zone, and we will go through and we'll do an estimated calculation of exactly what you're using.
Yeah, that's pretty cool for a couple of reasons, right? Lots of times your water bill is 2 months at one time. So 2 months pass of water use. Then it takes a month to get your bill. So you're finding out 3 months after you use the water how much you used. and more importantly, what it costs you. And you can't do anything about it then, right? It's July, you're finding about in October. So it's great to have this real time on the dashboard. You look at it, it's like your gas pump. You see it as it's happening.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a really great tool for water managers to really see. As you said, you're seeing it, pretty much in real time. So, I mean, if you have a budget, dollar amount or, even usage amount that you can use, you can really, stay up to date on it, really manage that water instead of just, as you said, being, 3 months down the road and, maybe you've used all your water, or you've spent the whole property's money and there's nothing that anybody can do about it.
Yeah. The other thing I really like about it too is, I have a feeling that maybe this is expensive to water this area, but how much is it really costing me? And I can actually see, right, based on the irrigation event, hey, it cost me $250 to water my yard today. Is that a lot of money or not? I don't know. It's for you to determine, but at least you have the data to make the determination because, look, pulling it all out and replanting it or redesigning your irrigation system isn't inexpensive either. So now you really have the data to make a good, intelligent decision. I love that.
Yeah, and a lot of people, they're looking at areas that they can convert from, turf to, rock beds or shrub beds, anything else that, to help, save water and reduce their bills. So this really gives you a very good idea if that back 40 behind the buildings is actually being used, or it really shows you, hey, we could save this much per month just by changing out these two zones.
Yeah. No, fantastic. Love to see that technology move forward and have such a great feature. I think again, it's hard to motivate people to be sustainable if they have to spend money to do it. Right? If it costs money to be sustainable, people don't necessarily want to do it. If it saves them money, they will do it. And in this case, you can actually see the real savings as they happen. I think it's a great way to motivate people to save, and I think it'll be a game changer.
Definitely, I agree. I think it's it's going to be very, very interesting to see, once we get a full season in it of what it's actually costing it, each individual zone and everything else.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Definitely. And then really, Richard, I just had one last thing for all of our viewers today. At ET Water, we do want to make a special offer for you guys. If you are planning on ordering any controllers or you want to sell them to any of your properties as winter work, we're willing to offer a 5% discount on anything that is purchased by the end of February. Just reference this webinar to get that. And then I have also attached my phone number and email address. So if you guys have any questions, you want to take advantage of that, feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, okay. I just want to be sure I understand this. So I get 5% off, but I'm not buying it from you. I'm buying it from DBC in Denver or Horizon or GJ Pipe or something like that. How do I end up getting my discount?
Correct. Yeah. So if you just let me or your local sales manager know, we'll work with your distributors to make sure that you do get that discount.
Yeah, well, it's a great offer. Thank you very much for that, DJ, and thanks so much for a great presentation today. I'm motivated to go out and work on my landscape this afternoon between the rainstorms. So
there you go.
Yeah, really appreciate that. I want to say thank you to all the viewers for tuning in today. We really appreciate that. We know everybody's got busy days these days, so to give us a little bit of your day, we really hold that valuable. We want to continue to give you good irrigation training. We are going to be back next week, next Wednesday, week from today, talking about how to set up a really nice indoor growing facility so that you can maximize yields and use least amount of water while you're doing it. So again, thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of the day. Thanks, DJ.
Thanks, Richard.
Okay, bye.